Welcome back. So with Tim Montgomery, political commentator, former number 10 advisor, former top Tory, I would say, who not so long ago switched parties to Reform UK.
Not sure I want to be described as a top Tory, because normally when that appears in the newspaper, they're normally up to no good, aren't they?
Top Tory means
in scandal of
means
some
they're
kind.
In trouble. Boris Johnson was often a top Tory, wasn't he? Top Tory toff means they're in really big trouble. By the way, just before we get on to Crazy Ed, how are things at Reform Towers these days?
Well, the remarkable thing was, I think last time I was on with you, we were in the middle of the sort of the Rupert Lowe scandal and all the fallout from it. And just looking at the opinion poll since, Reform's position in the polls has been remarkably stable. Yeah. Sort of still about 25, 26, 27%. Really the second, most popular party, sometimes the first most popular party in the country. And I think, look, I'm not saying that it was nothing, that row, but I think what most voters have, why they back Reform, is that they are fed up with the main two parties. They see the main two parties, as whether it's immigration or tax or general behaviour, they see them as the same. People talk about the uniparty. And the Rupert Lowe affair, for want of a better way of describing it, hasn't changed that. There's a solid 25 to 30% of voters out there who've had enough of the mainstream political parties, and that's not going to change. And I think they identify Nigel Farage, whatever some of the chit-chat internally is within Reform, they see Nigel Farage as the best person to change what they're unhappy about. And I would have to agree with them. I think they're right.
Well, our audience here at Talk, a lot of them still favour or like Rupert Lowe very much, and they made that very clear. It isn't that they don't like Nigel, but they liked Rupert. They liked some of the things he said. But I think what has emerged is that even those who are very doubtful about kicking Rupert out and didn't like the way that was handled, I think Reform could have done things a little bit more stylishly, but there you are. But I think that those who supported Reform were determined not to be derailed by this little local spat. They did see, or they see the project as bigger than a row between 100%, two guys. Yeah. So they were more than not. They were more than not just. They more than just passed over it. They were determined to stick with the project. And I think that they could still be on track. It's going to be really interesting.
Yesterday looked a really attractive personality, so that will help. And Reform does have a little bit of a female challenge, I think, Kevin. It's a very male-dominated party, so if there's a female MP in the House of Commons after the Runcorn by-election, that would be good for the party.
I've just remembered we're in local election purdah, so in a minute I'm going to have to read out all the other parties. Probably.
Sorry about that.
So here we go. My fault. But yes, interesting times. I think Reform might be the ones to watch going forward. Well, let's talk about old crazy Ed Miliband now.
Do we have to?
Yes, we do. I'm afraid it is incumbent upon us. Well, look, yesterday or over the weekend, he was forced to admit through gritted teeth that the solar panels that he wants to cover all our schools and NHS buildings with, I think it's like 200 schools and 200 NHS buildings. He wants to put £180 million worth of solar panels on the roofs of these establishments. Well, okay, fine, pretty typical. But he was forced to admit that these solar panels would be made in China using Chinese coal-fueled power stations. So in other words, they're made in incredibly unecological ways. Now, the government, we're told, is whipping against a motion by the Lords to stop taxpayers' cash being spent on products where there is credible evidence of modern slavery in the supply chain. That would include these solar panels. So there is evidence that slave labour is involved somewhere down the line with the production of these solar panels. In China, you wouldn't be entirely surprised. But the government, in its green zealotry, just wants to just ignore that. Oh, no. So the government is basically whipping against the Lord's legitimate fears that there may be slave labour involved in the production of the solar panels that are going to end up on British schools. Strange place for Labour to be.
And it just shows how topsy-turvy Labour values are now. And today's issue is these solar panels, Kevin. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them, one of the other passions, of course, of Labour are battery cars. And the mineral excavation for those batteries, a lot of that is done in mines where, in China and in Africa, where the standards of labour laws, rights that the labourers have and those miners have in those parts of the country are next to nothing. They're basically slave miners as well. So a lot of the environmental good that this government is very proud to apparently be doing is done at the expense of some very, very serious human rights labour abuses in different parts of the world. So it's not just these solar panels, it's a whole range of environmental goods.
But Miliband, in his zealotry, in his sort of mad dash to net zero, I mean, it seems like he'll just let anything happen as long as he can get his dream.
He's got religion on this, hasn't he? He's absolutely religious about it. And if you really are sort of blindly religious, nothing else gets in your way.
Yeah, do you think? I think he's an endangered species. I think that Keir Starmer won't put up with this guy for much longer.
He's put up with him for a long time.
But there's nothing scientific in anything he says. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, the big problem, I think, is I don't know what your position is on climate change. I think climate change is real, and I think it's happening around us. But do you fight it with mature technologies that in 10 years' time will actually be green without costing pensioners and British industry a lot of money? Or do you saddle an economy like ours with immature technology, whereby we've already got the most expensive energy in the world, British manufacturing will be put out of business, where we will get the power for the defence industries that supposedly Keir Starmer now wants to introduce, I have no idea. And so, yes, we fight climate change, but fight it when the technology is affordable, not now when the technology benefits China, uses slave labour, is unaffordable for the average British industry or the average British pensioner.
And now we're going to put up with this guy who is now responsible clearly for us Britain having the highest energy prices in the entire world. I mean, this is a real U-turn on what he promised us. He promised us £300 at least cheaper per year. It's about £300 more per year and rising. Everything he said hasn't come true, and we always knew it. There is nothing scientific or logical in anything he says. So how much longer is Starmer going to stick with this guy? Because Ed Miliband alone is making this government very unpopular. There are lots of other reasons.
He's the most dangerous member of this government, in my view. And until Keir Starmer gets rid of Ed Miliband, I'm not going to take Keir Starmer seriously on renewing Britain's defence industries. I'm not going to take Keir Starmer seriously on the cost of living. And I'm not going to take Keir Starmer seriously on the competitiveness of British industry.
And Rachel Reeves seems to be his big opponent in the cabinet. I mean, it's not often that I would praise...
No, my goodness, are we going to be on Rachel's side?
Yeah, well, it's not often that I would praise Rachel Reeves, but I'm with her on this one. I mean, she's the one who wants growth, development. She's the one backing the third runway at Heathrow, etc. Now,
because Ed Miliband's absented himself from that vote, hasn't he?
Well, he's absented himself, but he also says that he can sort of nominally back the idea of the third runway at Heathrow because it will be a green runway. This will be a green airport.
One without backup from a diesel
without
energy power station, things like that.
Backup generators. I mean, but
is this green runway going to be made of flowers or something? Or what is he talking about?
Well, no, it's nonsense, isn't it? So I don't think it will. I mean, I don't see how Starmer can stick by him for that much longer.
Well, Starmer is capable of doing 101 impossible things before breakfast. So let's not rush to herald Ed Miliband's demise quite yet.
Right, OK, no comments on this. Let's read out the... well, that's not right, is it? got the candidates here for Runcorn. The first one is Mike Amesbury. I don't think you'll find Mike Amesbury is standing. Therein lies the problem. We've got. Oh, this isn't right. You've got. So who's standing for Reform UK there?
What's the lady? What's her name?
Not
Ponchin or something? I've got her name now. Yeah.
No. That's we've got the wrong people there. Jason Moorcroft, he's not standing there, is he?
I don't know. Actually, all the other candidates.
No.
We'll have to come back to that.
Anyway, we're not really supposed to talk about it now. We're not supposed to talk about it anyway because we're in something called PERDA now, folks. So apparently if we mention any of the candidates in all of the local elections, it means that all the residents there are so stupid that if somebody on the radio says something positive about any of the candidates, it will completely change their minds.
These laws really need modernising.
They really do. It's ridiculous. However, it is what it is. What did you make of the WhatsApp revelations in Washington? They were fun.
Obviously, it's a security breach, and the administration are guilty of that. But in a way, what was unsurprising, or what was confirming, was they clearly talk in private how they talk in public. you know, the remarks, for example, about Europe freeloading on America, which are true, that's what they said a number of times publicly. And I was actually sort of, you don't invite a journalist onto a group discussing the possible bombing of an enemy. That was obviously very unfortunate. And there needs to be an inquiry and investigation into how that happened. But overall, what we learned in that exchange of messages only confirmed what we know publicly.
You know what made me laugh about it? Typical Trump. He announces, he's getting fired. He's getting fired, talking about Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor. An hour later, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. A little mistake, you know, he's not getting fired, so you never know.
It's a glitch. It was a glitch.
Call it that. That's what the Houthis said.
Yeah.
Oh, we've been bombed due to a glitch. Tim Montgomery, what a fabulous hour. Always a pleasure. Tim Montgomery there.